You don't need talent to be an artist. And that's what I showed you last time. And while going through my old work, I found a box filled with personal projects from when I was in high school. Applying what you're learning to projects that excite you is what you need to do to make the knowledge stick. But I was still finding my path as an artist, so some of this work is a little weird.
Okay, this box, this just says miscellaneous old. Just a mash of random stuff. Like in here is drawing from Max Turner Workshop and Glenn Villepeu Workshop. So these were probably later on. Little drawings like this. This is from when Max Turner, this is Max Turner's. Well, I did this from his workshop. He came in and he kind of showed a little technique that he likes to do on these textured papers. Lots of little things like that. There's a bunch, big stack through here. There's a big stack of stuff from Villepeu's class. More gesture. And then under this, I have a bunch of stuff from high school. This is even before I went to Watts. Little primitive shapes. I think this was a setup that my high school teacher put together. This is a photo from my grandpa's album that I just found, a photo album from when he was in the Soviet Army. Oil paintings, 2002. It's 22 years ago. This is when I was developing that really weird turkey illustration. So I did a bunch of different layers to study this. So this is egg placement. And so I'd figure out how to put all the ovals. Then the next one, this is value study. And it looks like I did 4 values. I thought about where the lightest lights will be, like these front eggs are light. Then you got value 2, then value 3 inside, and then some of the ribs and the bones were value 4. And then as it goes up, it goes from 2 to 3 to 4. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way, all in here, lots of contrast. So I was thinking about, for a value scale, how are the values transitioning through here? And then the movement, so I'm trying to think about the composition of the eye tracking. And this is just details of the skeleton. And then kind of an attempt at an early thumbnail of everything kind of put together. And then all that comes together to a larger drawing. More studies. So I think what I did was I did an initial sketch in the actual size. I took a tracing paper and then I designed my shapes a little more. And then I think maybe I somehow transferred that to another piece of paper. And that was my final. This is an interesting collage. I really liked going to the zoo and sketching. And so I was just trying to come up with some kind of, something that I would see in like a magazine or something, National Geographic, just doing a composition. This was mostly a shape design study. This was probably a little bit later into Watts, because you can see I already had quite a good handle on the subtleties and the halftones, but somehow that made it into here. I remember this was in high school as well. A little Gandhi caricature, Lincoln caricature. Yeah, this is 2004. So this is my senior year in high school. 2003. Oh, right. I remember what this was. So I had a book. Man, I forgot the name of the book. This is pre-Watts as well, where I learned this technique. It was completely based on a blending stump, where you would put some tone down, and then get a blending stump and kind of like soften it into other shapes. And all of this was just like mostly blending stump, trying to create shapes. And it works fine. I mean, now I look at it and I completely hate this, but back then I was so happy. I was so proud with how these gradations looked in the end, how they all kind of come together. Also, looking back, I think it was really good practice to work on subtle halftones and how halftones transition into each other and all that. It's good practice, but the technique itself, looking back, I don't like it anymore. I like cross-hatching. I like showing all the lines and how that turns the form. Personal preference, I just enjoy that more.
All of this work was an important step in my journey to becoming the artist I am today. But if you want to see more of the work that I'm actually proud of, I got a Kickstarter going on right now with a book showcasing my favorite works in charcoal and graphite, along with another book on hand anatomy. The Kickstarter is already fully funded, so check it out if you want a copy of your own before it ends. Go to proko.com/Kickstarter for details.
This is also 2003, pre-Watts, little gouache. I had also a really good high school art teacher. Just kind of got lucky in having really good mentors in my life. This one I did at home. I think this was like one of the first really serious still lifes that I set up at home and tried painting on my own without an instructor, just kind of trying to do a really nice painting. This took me, several days, but yeah, I think it came together pretty good. These gouaches up here are, I think, much later. Maybe this is like 3 or so years into Watts. I mean, you could see like the shape design is much better than those previous paintings in high school. This is a self-portrait of me as a kid. And again, look at little thumbnail value studies, right? Like these two were studies for this bigger one. I didn't know if I wanted to go full contrast with a black background and a very light interior, or having kind of a light and middle in here. And I thought like, oh, this is more powerful, so I went with that, and I think I made the right call. I like this contrast much better. Same thing in here, 3 very different compositions for the same thing. Now, I think I also chose the black background, but I don't think it turned out very good. Looking at these makes me really want to go do some more gouache paintings. It's really fun. Gouache is all about learning how to tile. Oh gosh, and this was, I believe, prior to all of those. You can see I didn't even know which paper to get in order to not have it completely rip up the paper when I took the tape off of it. Actually, no, the same thing here. Never mind. The tape destroyed all of that. There, these came later when I got the right paper, and you can see I took the tape off and it creates a nice edge without ripping it all apart. This is a caricature I did of my grandpa and one of his friends. In the mornings and afternoons, he would, like once or twice a week, someone would pick him up and take him to this area where a bunch of old people would get together and kind of just like hang out and eat and play checkers and stuff and play cards. One day I went with him just to like, hey grandpa, let me go with you. This senior in high school. I just watched him play checkers with this guy, and he was always like, trying to be intimidating. And I was just watching him and I was like, I gotta draw that. And so when I got home, I did a little caricature from memory. This was fun. Oh yeah, and then this is a picture of my mom's elementary school class. This is an old picture, black and white picture. And I just did a little value study, right? This kind of has that same like posterized Photoshop filter effect to it. And I was just trying to figure out like shapes as they connect to each other. Yeah, even just trying to simplify the gradation into 4 steps. This was a value study. So a lot of these that you're seeing here in this box, these are like at-home projects that I would do outside of when I would go to life drawing class, right? I'd come back home and I'd have something that I'm working on. Like this one in here, this is like a composition. I never really finished it, but I don't want to. It's been way too long for me to come back to it now. I did kind of finish the focal point, right? This really skinny dude going to the gym, looking at these buff guys working out, and a little perspective there. But yeah, I spent a long time on this trying to figure out the composition. You can see I'm like being really deliberate with just the light patterns in here leading into this guy right here. But I even did some photo shoots of there was a student at Watts, and I just took a picture of him at both of these angles, and I exaggerated him by like, I don't know, 10x. Like he wasn't a bodybuilder. He was a big dude, but all the definition, all the muscles and stuff in here, I invented that from books. So I used him as just kind of like a general shape, and then I had to figure out what would the muscles be if I could see them on that guy. So this was a really, really useful exercise for me while learning anatomy in class to go and try to apply it to something real, something I'm excited about drawing. And then also all the little value studies I was doing to figure out compositions and my quick sketches. Like all of that comes together and it's like, why did I learn all of those 2 value little sketches? Well, it's so that then I can figure out how to group values together in the bigger compositions like this. This whole pad is just caricature class with markers. There's probably like 100 or 200 of them in here. Lots and lots of caricatures. Little colored pencil drawing of my dog in the clouds. Look at that. There he is right there. Oh, and here's me experimenting with different ways to apply white and black charcoal on colored paper, on toned paper. So you could do this approach here where the white and the black never really mix. You have the middle, the paper itself as the value in between. Or you could have it where you have that white highlight, and then also in the halftones, you do both black and white. And what that does is it creates a different color temperature. So the lights are cold, and then the shadows are warm because none of the white is in the shadows, right? And so you can see how this is cold, this is warm. And then here is an application of that. So this is one where I chose to overlap the white and the black in the lights. So keeping that cold and the shadows warm. Never finished this. I think this was actually a demo I did in class teaching this actual approach. Hey, look at that, self-portrait. 2006. So this is 3 years into Watt's Atelier. A little self-portrait. Here's some studies from that illustration I showed you earlier. See that? So boxes, trying to figure out the perspective, and then putting the tones on top. Several unfinished portraits in here as well. I would start them. They would kind of just sit there because I got into something else, and then I would never get back to them. Back to 2003, pre-Watts, little Corvette. I had a vision board all through my 20s of just things that I wanted to achieve. And one of those things is always just like a Corvette. I never got a Corvette, but it was on there. There's one of my weird ass illustrations. This is me trying to apply anatomy. I was studying anatomy, I was studying figure drawing. I was like, what can I do is be creative and stuff. And it's like, here's my creative anatomy thing. I don't know what I was even trying to say with this. I thought I was being really cool and clever with like, oh, juxtaposition of life and death. And it's like, you got this like dead skull person, but she's pregnant. Right? Like, it even says 9 on it. As if like it's not obvious, you know? It's like, it's so cringy while looking at it now. But I kind of wish I had that kind of like no fear, I don't care what people think mentality now as well. Some drapery studies on toned paper again. This is from life actually. Really subtle cross contours in here, with little highlights also designed as little, just like little cross contour lines, cross hatching. Here's the second one of the series, juxtaposition of life and death. Mr. Artsy Fartsy Pants. Me, I didn't do drugs. I don't know why I even did this. But yeah, it was like just this druggie sitting against the wall. I don't even know what that says. It means something. Oh, it says the dark side of life, right? I was like, I don't want to do drugs. Let's do a thing. Let's do an illustration showing how bad drugs are. It's a study for a painting I ended up doing later. This is from my trip to Ukraine. I went there with Jeff Watts and took a photo of these guys actually working, or several photos, and then I kind of put them all together into this composition of these pieces. I think these guys were out somewhere else, and then I moved them over to the horses. This is a nice little study. I think this might have been in a Steve Houston workshop. It was either in his workshop or I was just studying him from pictures online and then trying to do my own in the same style, which is actually a really valuable exercise. I'm not sure what this is, but lots of notes. This must have been from some kind of workshop. I think this is the Steve Houston workshop. This is not. These are for color wheels. Hey, look at it. Very comfortable with my gesture. Lots of stuff in here still. Lots of random projects. Oh, here's the photo of that guy. The gym illustration I did. And here's him on a bench. So you can see, I had to push the anatomy quite a bit. The first attempt. Look at that. This is the first drawing I did, and I wasn't happy with how it was going. I even had me as the skinny dude. Right, and then there's that final result again. The unfinished final result.
All right, that's all for this box of art. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more of my student work. And if you want to see my new art book on Kickstarter, there's about 1 week left to grab a copy. Check it out at proko.com/Kickstarter.